so the two big concepts we've covered so far in this unit have been what?
Absolute and comparative advantage.
Absolute and comparative advantage. How are those two terms similar?
They are both the person, the best person. I don't know. Ends up being the best. In the long run, they'll be the best. Comparative is the next best option.
Well, so when looking at absolute or comparative advantage, what's similar in the process of examining absolute and comparative? What are we comparing? We're comparing different people or different countries' ability to produce things, right? So that's a similarity. Both are comparing a country's production, right? How are they different?
Absolute is you do the best in all aspects.
All right. So absolute, you are just absolutely better than the other competitor. All right.
Comparative, opportunity cost.
What about opportunity?
Less.
You opportunity cost less?
Less opportunity cost is comparative.
Right. Yeah. So comparative advantage, what we're comparing is the opportunity cost associated with production. All right. So absolute advantage is when someone is the best at doing something. Right. America is the best at producing entertainment. How many times do you guys turn on Netflix to watch something made in China?
I don't speak Chinese.
How many of you guys? How do you guys watch even? How do you guys watch Univision? Or Telemundo? Right. How do you guys watch French movies?
Oh, sometimes.
Actually, I do.
Russian we did, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Sorry. So if you've seen a run of,
I don't understand what we saw.
okay. Compare the quality of American movies to foreign-made movies.
They knock off that.
They don't have as much budget.
Right. They don't have nearly as much budget. Right. They don't have the same famous people in them. All right. So America, when it comes to producing entertainment, right? How do you guys? Your favorite band is from Africa. Right. How many of you can name a band from Africa? What you got? Lady Smith, Black Mambazo.
The Zimbabwe Zoos.
But yeah, so most of the entertainment that we consume, and most of the entertainment the world consumes, comes from America. Right? If you travel to a foreign country and you happen to buy a movie theater, guess what the posters are going to look like?
Trash.
They're going to look very similar to the posters you see in America, with the exception they're going to have the Cyrillic alphabet on them, or they're going to be spelled in French. But they take the same American movies that we produce and subtitle them for other countries. All right. How many of you guys watch the NFL? Anybody? All right, O'Brien. If you were the general manager of a team that needed to win one Super Bowl, who do you pick to be your quarterback?
No.
Who has produced the most Super Bowls?
Colin Kaepernick.
There's one guy who's currently playing who has 5 Super Bowls. Tom Brady. Right? So chances are, if you need to win a Super Bowl, just one game, you pick Tom Brady. Right? Because the next most that anybody has is 2.
Who is that?
Eli Manning. Hey, has 2, but he's not currently playing. Yeah. So Wilson has 1.
Best option for college, though.
Best option for college, Baker Mayfield. So remember, there's 2 types of absolute advantage. We're either comparing individuals, right, like Tom Brady and Matt Ryan, right? When it comes to, you got to put one of them guys to win the Super Bowl. Who are you picking? Yeah, you don't pick Matt Ryan in the Super Bowl. That doesn't work out. We can also have national absolute advantages. Right? That's where we're comparing the production of 2 different nations, right? Seeing which one can produce more than the other. So think about it. Is there ever a scenario where someone may have the absolute advantage in performing 2 different activities, but still want someone else to perform the other activity?
Yes. Lauren and Blake on that activity.
All right, Lauren and Blake from our activity from Friday. All right. Think of Brian. Who'd you say? LeBron James. Can he play all 5 positions?
Yeah.
Can he play them all 5 at once? No, right? He's going to have to use a little bit of comparative advantage. The coach or whoever's making their lineup is going to say, all right, LeBron's going to play here, and then where can we best fit people around him? All right, here's an example. I haven't updated this one recently, but so I'm pretty good at cutting grass. Yeah, I mow the lawn, drop it down. I'm also pretty good at cleaning dishes. Yeah, I'm pretty cleaning dishes. I look good when I do it. Get my little gloves on.
It's meant to sound like a fish.
I get my little apron going. Now, my wife claims to have abilities in both of these areas as well. Right? She says she can cut the grass. She says she can do the dishes too. Okay. So what could we do to determine how to split that responsibility?
See who does it quicker. Then
Better.
who does it better?
Better? Who does it quicker?
More.
You'd rather have something
More
better
efficient.
than
More efficient. Right? I like that idea of looking for efficiency. Right? That's what we're looking for in economics. Can we do it easier, cheaper, with less stuff? Right? Can we do it better than we did before? Right? So we're looking for efficiency. So I can mow the yard in 3 hours. Push mower. Right? And hypothetically, she can do it in 4.5. No, really no, because I've never actually seen it happen. Just guessing at that time. Also, I can clean a sink full of dishes in 15 minutes, where it takes her 18 minutes. So, I have the absolute advantage in both, right?
Right.
Who mows in less time?
Man.
Who cleans in less time? Right. So, should I do both?
No, you shouldn't do both.
Yeah, I should, right?
Y'all can get the same.
So, is there still going to be a reason to specialize and trade?
Yes.
Right? Probably should, right? And that's what gets us to comparative advantage. Right? Comparative advantage is when we compare the ability to produce to see who can produce something at a lower opportunity cost. Does anybody remember what opportunity cost is?
The next best alternative.
Right? It's the thing that you didn't do when you made a choice to do something else. Right? That next best alternative. So when I decide to wash dishes, what am I not able to do?
Cutting grass.
of not cutting grass. Right? That's my opportunity cost. Right? And then so comparative advantage is the reason that we trade. Because if people can do it at a lower cost than you, chances are they can sell it to you for less than you can buy it as well. And so a person or nation will choose to specialize in the production of what they can do for the lowest opportunity cost. And then trade for those things that they have a higher opportunity cost for. Right? So if you're really good at fixing the sink and maybe the shower, what type of trade should you specialize in? Plumbing. Right? If you're really good with building stuff out of wood, what should you go into? Huh? Carpentry. If you're really good with computers, right? What type of things should you specialize in? Technology stuff, right? Chances are, if you're really good at computers, you wouldn't then choose to specialize in typewriters. Right? You would let someone else focus on typewriters, even if you really like typewriters. Example of that, you guys know who Tom Hanks is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Tom Hanks is a big-time typewriter aficionado. He loves typewriters. Right? But does he specialize in typewriters? How did he choose to specialize in
Acting.
acting? Right? He felt he'd be able to specialize and end up with more money if he focused on acting, and then he can still buy typewriters, and through the money he makes as an actor, what can he do? He can go get those typewriters fixed. He can buy new ones. He can buy even older ones, new parts for them. So gains from trade. Remember, what was the phrase that I taught you guys last week about trade? What does it create? Say it loud, say it proud. Wealth. Trade creates wealth. And the reason trade creates wealth is because of this comparative advantage. Right? Because if I can get something at lower cost from one of my friends than making it myself, I'm going to end up better off because I'm going to have more money or more time than I would if I tried to make it myself. The ability to specialize and then trade increases productivity within a nation. We'll look at an example of that here in a little bit. And it will also increase output and the standard of living. Right? How can increasing output also increase the standard of living? What also happens when the nation increases output? Based on what we talked about the last year. So, yeah, if we're making more stuff, what does that mean?
We're selling.
We're selling it. So we're making it, we're producing it, people are buying it. So what do we know about people's income?
It's increasing.
It's increasing too. Right? And when people's income increases, what are they then able to do?
Buy more.
Go out and buy more stuff. Right? So that can increase their standard of living. And the things that they're buying generally become a little bit cheaper, if we increase the supply of it. So everyone benefits when we can trade. Think about that activity we did where round 1 to round 2, items did not change, right? It's the same exact 17 items or 16, however many people we had here Friday. Same exact amount. We just moved them around, and what happened? Round 1 to round 2. Yeah, we increased our satisfaction with those exact same items. We just had to get them into the right hands. Right? We just had to trade them around. So when we trade, you'll get a greater quantity. We'll be able to produce more. Right? But there's also going to be a greater variety. and they're going to be of higher quality. Right? Because the person now specializes in doing this one thing. They're not trying to do 5 different things. Right? It's better to do one thing wholeheartedly than 5 things halfway, right? So, let's look at an example between Alaska and Brazil. Right? You have an 8-hour working day in both Alaska and Brazil. And for this situation, both those countries only produce 2 items. Right? They either produce salmon or coffee. Those are the 2 possible items that they can produce. Right? And so if the worker in Alaska splits his 8-hour day between 4 hours with salmon and 4 hours with coffee, he'll end up producing 5 pounds of salmon and 1 pound of coffee. Right? And then down in Brazil, another worker spending that same 8-hour day split evenly between the 2 activities can produce 1 pound of salmon and 5 pounds of coffee. Right? So if they don't trade, Alaska gets how many pounds of salmon?
5.
And how many pounds of coffee?
1.
Right? And then Brazil gets how many pounds of salmon?
1.
And how many pounds of coffee?
5.
Okay, that doesn't seem bad, right? But what happens if you're in Alaska and it's cold, it's early, you got to go out and go fishing? What might you want? You might want to drink a little bit of coffee, right?
But you don't have enough.
Probably not going to have enough if you only get 1 pound of coffee. So, what could happen?
Trade.
We could trade.
5 pounds of salmon, 5 pounds of coffee.
Well, if we trade 5 pounds of salmon for 5 pounds of coffee,
Then we're going to have any.
how much coffee are we going to end up with in Alaska?
6.
6 pounds of coffee, how much salmon?
0.
0. Does that seem like a good trade?
Yeah.
Oh, 1.
Right? So what would happen in Brazil? They give up 5 coffee,
They have no coffee.
0 coffee, and 6 salmon. Does that seem like a good situation? No. What should we do first before we trade?
Find the opportunity cost. No.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then do what? What do we do once we find the opportunity cost?
Satisfactory.
Specialize. Thank you, Kevin. Right? So what we need to do is find out who does it at a lower opportunity cost and then figure out who's going to specialize. Right? So just without even doing the math, who should specialize in salmon? Who should specialize in coffee? Right? Alaska, if they spend 4 hours on salmon and can make 5 pounds of salmon, and then 4 hours of coffee makes 1 pound of coffee. So if they go all 8 into coffee, how much coffee they're going to produce? If they put all 8 hours into coffee, 2 pounds of coffee, right? Is that better off?
No.
No, right? So what we're going to see when they specialize, they'll spend all 8 hours doing one activity, right? Alaska will produce the salmon. Brazil will produce the coffee. Right? Now we got to figure out how they're going to trade for one another. Right? So if they specialize in what they make best, Alaska will spend all their time on salmon. Brazil will only make coffee. So now our Alaskan worker has 10 pounds of salmon but no coffee. So how can the Alaskan make this work to his benefit? What can he do?
5 pounds of salmon.
So if he trades 5 pounds of salmon for 5 pounds of coffee, right? How many pounds of salmon will he have? 5. And how many coffee? 5. Is that better than he was by himself?
Yeah.
Right? He ends up with how much more coffee?
4 more pounds.
Yeah, he ends up with 4 more pounds, right? So if he gives the Brazilian half of the salmon, 5 pounds, he will still have 5 pounds of salmon, which is exactly what he had when he spent 4 hours producing salmon, right? But he will also then have those 5 pounds of coffee as well, right? So in the end, he comes out with an extra 4 pounds of coffee, and he did not have to do any additional work, right? He's still only working 8 hours a day. Matter of fact, it's probably easier to spend 8 hours doing one thing than to try to split it evenly, because you're out on the boat catching salmon and it's your 4 hours is up. Well, you got to come all the way back in. You got to get off the boat. You got to go then. I don't know where you would even grow coffee in Alaska. Then you got to go find where you're growing your coffee and all that kind of stuff, right? So being able to spend 8 hours doing one thing is going to be easier than trying to split it between the two. And so you end up with more stuff and less work. Right? This is why in America, despite being better at a lot of other countries in producing some items, we still end up getting so many items from other places, right? What have we seen so far? Where do a lot of our items come from?
Saudi Arabia and China.
Right? So, yeah. China, Honduras, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Mexico, right? In an entire week of putting these up there on the wall, we only had 6 come out of the Americas. Right? Only 6 items. But how many of those little sticky notes are up there?
6,000.
Yeah, 6,000. Good estimate. So why do we trade for things like clothing?
So that whenever they run out of clothing, we'll be the ones producing clothing.
We're not producing clothing.
It's cheaper for them to make clothing.
It's cheaper for them, right? And so they can make more for less. They can make more clothes at a lower cost. Because what do we want when we go shopping?
Cheap.
We want cheap clothes, right? We want to buy it at a lower price. We don't necessarily look on tags to say, oh, this is made in America. I'll pay $8 more for this shirt because it's American. No, you go, oh, that's cool. I like that. Oh, I can get it cheaper over here. Done. Give me the cheap one. And so what type of things do we do here in America?
Big stuff like that.
Create cars.
Big stuff. Airplanes, cars. What else?
Warfare.
Okay. We do produce a lot of that. All right, we produce the items of warfare: tanks, planes, missiles, rockets, guns. Corn. These others.
I have a question about gas.
You have a question about gas? What about it?
Which question?
Are we just waiting until Saudi Arabia runs out of gas? Or
We would much rather Saudi Arabia run out of gas than us, right?
Right.
So as long as they're selling it, we're going to be buying it from them, because the more we can buy from this part of the world, the less we're having to take out of our own resources, and we'd rather have those resources available when we need them.
So will it eventually run out of gas?
by
Scarcity.
then,
Because how many dinosaurs do you know are dying right now?
I mean, I think
see.
There's a long time before you. We're pulling millions of barrels of oil out of the ground every day throughout the world, and we will probably still continue to be able to do that for
2 years.
a long while. I don't know exactly how long.
It's at 55 years.
55 years.
BP's
by the time
estimated 55 years.
Now, is that just BP's reserves, or is that throughout the world?
According to BP Statistical Bureau World Energy.
Okay.
So we'll
86 million barrels of oil per day. And if we continue at that pattern, we got 55 years worth of oil left.
So our lifetime will see no more gas in the world.
All of ours.
Well, chances are your lifetime will see a switch from gas to electric, right?
Then what are we gonna do with the trucks? Like shipping and stuff. They can't use electricity.
What?
Bro, you can't even put a larger battery in.
Yes.
Taylor Smith to the front lobby for just a few minutes, please.
All righty.
Bro, there's not enough electricity to pull a tractor.
I don't know if I'd say that.
No, look, no, like, just saying, like, those little things that you plug up into an electric car, like, that is not enough power to tractor.
Well, yeah.
You don't know that.
That's why. I mean, that's why there are companies like Tesla that are constantly working on improving the amount of power we can pull out of electrical sources.
I'm gonna run out of that one now. I'm gonna run out of that one now.
Depends on how we access that electricity. Do we get it through burning stuff? Because if we get it through burning stuff, then yeah, we're gonna run out of it. Just like oil.
Hydroelectricity.
Yeah. So hydroelectricity, right? If we run water over this edge and into a turbine, it will spin that turbine, and that causes electricity. Right? Same thing with wind. Wind. If wind will turn the windmill, right, that will drive electricity. But
Solar power.
solar power, right? Turns sunlight into energy. So, will we ever run out of energy? Probably not, as long as we continuously work to innovate and develop.
Always selling
This is my peach tree. And then I got a couple scuppernongers.
What's this scupper?
Are they gonna grow?
Well, eventually.
They can only get so big.
Wait, you're gonna grow the full tree?
No, I'm going to move them outside. The other day.
No, you should just pour dirt on the ground and like plant it in the room.
Yeah, this should be an organic classroom.
Well, I
Just
don't
make
know.
this the Garden of Eden.
Y'all do wine enough.
We can
There's
just
enough
take
pollen
off our
coming out.
shoes. Like,
Those things take off. Man. Maybe we could water them with some tears.
test grade. Test
Yeah, I could.
Just show us our test grade. You got a whole bunch
Yeah.
of tears.
Every time I give out test grades, I can just make you do it over top of the peach tree and just watch you guys.
The mice are
The inside aren't that bad.
Because they get into existence.
Turn it in, right?
Ah, right.
Okay. Let's real quick look at our example from earlier, right, about
Alaska.
mowing grass and washing dishes. Right? So, is this, what's the first thing we've got to do when we have a comparative advantage problem?
Final opportunity cost.
Before that.
Find the problem.
Well, what do you mean by find the problem?
See what needs to be changed.
So if we were going to figure out who should cut grass and who should wash dishes, between myself and my wife.
Absolute advantage.
Not necessarily don't need to know absolute advantage.
What we just do when we're doing that Brazil and Alaska?
The other number under.
Input and output, is it an input or an output?
There we go. We got to figure out, is it an input question or an output question?
I'm looking output.
Right? So remember, inputs are the resources that we have to put into production, whereas output are the finished products that come out. Right? So in this situation, where it takes me 3 hours to cut the grass and it takes my wife 4.5 hours to cut the grass, is that input or output?
Output.
Is it?
Input.
Because what's the final result?
Clean grass.
Right? Cut. Yeah, we've got a completely cut yard. Right? So there's only one thing that's coming out. What are these? It's the time it takes. So time is an input. Right?
Okay.
So as an input problem, what 3 letters should we think of? I-O-U, and that means?
What other number under?
Inputs,
Other
number under. Right? So
the input of more grass.
we're looking at, all right, so grass, so opportunity cost of grass equals, yeah, for me. So our number in question is what?
3.
3.
So that's on top.
All right, and yeah, and then the other number that goes under
Is what?
which one?
15?
So 15 minutes, right? And because it's 15 minutes, that's quarter of an hour into 0.25.
Okay.
Right, and so if we reduce that, what does that reduce to?
I'm gonna say 3 over 1/4 is.
So is it like 12?
I say 9. I'm just playing out.
Well, so I do the math.
I'm trying to find calculator.
3 divided by 0.25.
Oh.
It's the math that's what it says.
Well.
Hmm?
12.
12! Look at me being all right and stuff.
Oh.
Okay, so what that means is that when I spend 1 hour cutting grass, I am missing out on, I could have done the dishes 12 times.
I bet.
All right, and then for my wife, opportunity cost of the grass is 4.5 over, let's see, 18. That'd be like 0.28 maybe. So somebody drop the math in there.
$16.01.
So if she were to cut the grass, she would miss out on the opportunity to do the dishes 16 different times. Right? So in this situation, who pays less to cut grass?
You do.
Right? Me. I give up less dishes than she does. So in this situation, who should cut grass? Right? How do we know that? Because I give up less of the other stuff. Right? And so who should wash dishes? She should.
She should.
How do we know that?
She gives less of everything.
Well, easy way to figure it out is that the opportunity cost for one dish equals the reciprocals, right?
Right. Wait a minute.
So when I do the dishes, I'm missing out on 1/12 of cutting grass. And then she gives up 1/16 of cutting grass to do dishes. Who pays a lower cost for dishes?
She does.
Right, because 1/16 is less than 1/12. Play the game called, where to put that clicker? Oh, there it is.
He did 15 is like a quarter of an hour. So 125.
Yeah. You could still, even with the way this is set up being hours and minutes, you could still put it in there as 3 over 15. It's still, the relationship of the numbers will still work out to tell you the right comparative advantage.
5.
So, you guys ever, have y'all ever had maybe trouble with maybe your phone or computer, maybe a bank account, and had to call an 800 number?
Yeah.
Anybody ever have to call an 800 number for service?
Yes.
Okay. Generally, when you call a customer service number, who is answering on that other end?
Computer.
Customer service representative.
No, not for.
Where do
A foreign person.
yeah, where is this customer service representative usually coming from?
India.
Right?
Why?
Well, that's what we're going to look at. So, why,
Just speaking the truth here.
why when you call Apple support, do you get somebody with a thick Indian accent telling you their name is Kevin? Why does that happen?
Because they're cheap to pay.
Okay, so yeah, it's cheaper to pay the Indian laborer because what are they doing? What's their job?
Answer phone.
Answer a phone, right? Do they actually help you solve the problem? Do they know what they're doing to help you solve the problem? No. They have a script that says when a person says their problem is this, you go, well, have you tried this? Well, have you tried this? Here's step 1, 2, and 3. And so, is it worth what we would give up to put American workers in those jobs?
No.
Because think about what would we give up if we put American tech workers answering customer service questions.
We wouldn't have the quality of
Money.
Right? Ultimately, we would give up too many of those technology workers who could be doing bigger and better things. Instead, they're now listening to your calls and having to figure out why you can't turn your phone on. Right? So we would rather let other people do those very simple, low-level tasks like answering the phone. So it's better for a country to give away inferior tasks, right, like answering the phone, even if it's not going to be done to the same level that it would be done by American workers, right? Because we would give up too much. Like those workers could be doing too many other things instead, right? So instead of answering your calls and telling you how to delete that picture that you sent out to somebody, right? Now, instead of them having to listen to that, they can come up with the next generation of Snapchat that allows pictures to completely be eliminated. They're not saved on the server somewhere. But to realize everything on Snapchat is saved on a server somewhere, just in case Snapchat ever gets sued. Right? Just because it goes off of your computer or your phone doesn't mean it goes away forever.
Just imagine it's sued for
what? I don't know exactly what might cause it, but say there is a Snapchat notices there is a streak between a teacher and a student. Right? They have like a 100-day streak going, and find out that on about day 65 of that streak, it got real personal. Right? Snapchat theoretically could be sued by the parents of the child because there was no protection between an adult interacting with a young person. And so Snapchat would need to be able to go back and go, okay, well, yeah, here's where they started sending explicit messages. This day and age, nothing goes away. Nothing ever goes away. All right, we talked about this. There are two methods. I don't know why I held up 3 fingers. I guess I was counting the spaces here. There are 2 methods for calculating comparative advantage. What are those 2 methods?
Input and output.
Input and output, right? So the input method, we are comparing the amount of resources, time, material, labor, energy, right? The amount of resources needed to complete an action, right? So what inputs do we need to produce this item? And when you're dealing with inputs, it's IOU. Inputs, the other number goes under. So when you are comparing inputs, right, like we were doing with time it takes to cut grass and wash dishes, right? You take the number that's in question, you put the other number underneath, right? So the 3 with the 15 minutes underneath, create that fraction and then reduce. Right? Reduce it down to its lowest possible point. And the output method is the exact reciprocal of the input method, because in output you're comparing the amount of finished goods that can be produced with a given amount of resources. So how many birdhouses can be made in an hour? How many airplanes are made in a year? How many apples were harvested in a month? And so when you're doing output, it's O, output, other number goes over. So you create the fraction by placing the other number over top of your number in question. And we'll look at a couple of examples of how we do this.
Okay.
A couple times.
All right, so here is. I can go back.
Awesome.
All you gotta do is ask. I might make fun of you, but I'll go back. Man, this thing has got typos all up on it. I should really start reviewing these things before I put them out. Well, if you don't know it, you don't get to find it.
Thin.
There you go. It's not thin, think. Oh. All right, let's take a look at a sample problem. Who has the absolute advantage in the production of cars?
United States.
I'm just going to go back.
Well, what do you need to know first?
I mean, the ratio of the output.
Yeah, is this an input or an output problem?
Output.
All right, let's say this is cars produced in a day. All right, it's items produced in a day, right? So if it's items produced in a day, who has the absolute advantage in cars?
United States.
United States, right? What if it was input? What if this was time it takes to produce one car?
Japan.
Then Japan would have the absolute advantage, right? Who has the absolute advantage computers if we're talking output?
Japan.
Playing up on my door, right? The Japanese have the absolute advantage when it comes to output in computers. Now, if it were input,
The United States.
United States, right? So who has the comparative advantage in computers?
Let's figure it out.
All right, let's figure it out. What's it going to take?
In one day.
So we're sticking with it being output, right?
Okay.
So if it's output, and we're looking at U.S. cars, all right? Our number in question for cars in the United States is 12. All right, and the other number that goes over is going to be what? 4, right? It's what else could the United States be doing in that day? They either spend a day making 12 cars, or they can spend the day making 4 computers. So the other number goes over. And so in the U.S., 1 car equals
1/3 of a computer.
1/3 of a computer. Yes, sir. And so in Japan, what's the number for cars in Japan?
10.
What number goes over?
6.
So in Japan, 1 car
Equals about 2, 3 fifths.
right? So 3/5 of a computer. So who gives up less to produce a car?
I don't know.
Would you rather pay
20 cents.
33 cents or
60 cents.
60 cents?
You would say
Right, yeah, you would rather pay this price. So, the comparative advantage in cars is the United States. How can we find the comparative advantage in computers now?
reciprocal.
Just take that reciprocal, right? So, one computer equals 3 cars. One computer equals 5/3 of a car. What price would you rather pay for a computer? 3 cars or 1 2/3 cars?
1 2/3.
Right, you'd rather pay that 1 2/3.
Sorry.
Right. So Japan has the comparative advantage in cars because they only have to give up 5/3 of a car versus the United States just give up 3 whole cars in order to make 1 computer. The time that the United States spends making 1 computer, they are missing out on 3 cars. That's what that means, right? That 1 computer equals 3 cars is the time it takes to make 1 computer, they are not making 3 cars. Right? And then to get the math on that, the opportunity cost of computers, the number in question is 4. The other number goes over. So it's 12 over 4 or 3 over 1. So it's 3 cars. Japan's opportunity cost is 10 over 6. There's a reciprocal. Both of those numbers that we looked at first reduced down to 5/3 of a car. Right? Comparative advantage in cars. When I looked at it, it's the U.S. because the U.S. only gives up 1/3 of a computer every time they make a car. But in Japan, every time they make a car, they're missing out on 3/5 of a computer. Right? So 4 over 12 reduced down to 1/3. Japan 6 over 10 reduced down to 3/5. Right? And then the relationship between those two numbers, between the comparative advantage of cars and comparative advantage of computers, what's the relationship of those two numbers?
Reciprocal.
Reciprocals. All right. Now, what happens if we make that an input problem?
Then everything's changed because it's like different.
Yeah. So if we make this an input problem,
12 hours make 1 car in the U.S.
So
The same thing, but
yeah.
everything's switched.
All right. So let's take a look at it. Let's switch it real quick. So if we're looking at U.S. cars, Japan cars. All right. So U.S. cars, the number is 12, and the other number goes under.
That's 3.
The 1 car equals 3 computers. Right? We find that it's the reciprocal of that one, right? And then in Japan, it's 10 over 6 or 5/3. So 1 car equals 1 2/3 computer. So who pays less for a car?
Japan.
Japan, right? Oh, don't go in there. Oh man, gross. All right, so let's try. I want you guys to try.
Kevin, wait.
Yes, sir. I want you to try it as an input and an output question.
Seriously, you're gonna move over there.
All right. So yeah, go ahead, try to answer those 4 questions once as an output problem, and then answer them again as an input problem.
You see if we can do that quiz.
Yeah, I'm just checking. We'll go over it eventually.
All right, let's get started.
That's what I can do. My turn.
Don't lie to yourself, Bill.
What a minute, I've done fine. All right.
C-O-U-P. I was like, what? You use soup in the bathroom? I mean, they both take
The answer is neither Fiji banana.
Oh, whoever is. So
Which one, output or
that's
input?
the rice one.
Well, we need to do that. You don't have to calculate anything.
Oh, yeah.
For output.
For output.
You have to do the questions twice.
It'll be 2 for China.
Oh.
The tone.
It
Input.
That'd be one
Wait, so, like,
I have no idea how to calculate either. That don't tell me anything. That's just a bunch of numbers and top of my
now I'm picking Kevin for being unemployed.
Did you get this?
It's not me. I can pick up Kevin for being unemployed.
It's always.
Who's unemployed now? It's like y'all been giving me since the
This is what I wrote.
So
That's
how do you
what I
figure it
picked.
out so that?
I wrote my name.
Output. So
What you got, Cletus? I wrote my name.
I'm on the input.
so all right. You got it a little backwards. Right? So you're looking at bananas in Fiji, right? The output. The other number goes over. So you've got Fiji's bananas and then China's bananas. Instead, we want Fiji bananas and then Fiji's rice number goes at the top. And so that will cause this one to switch around because it's rice number with bananas over the top. So make those changes and then do the math again.
Just looking at bananas, would you 10 over 10? Wait, so there's one
For
banana?
Fiji?
Five rice? Or would it be 5 over 10?
Kevin,
It'd be 5.
can I see you?
But you can look at just
I want to see this just a second.
but it says bananas.
Output you did.
I got look.
Kevin, you spelled Fiji
That's what I
wrong.
wrote.
It's on the board.
So wait, instead of rice.
One rice. Put one little grain of rice and 2 bananas.
If we're
Kevin, you need to go back to this.
So yeah, if it's late,
This is all I
say
wrote.
amount produced in and
I
out.
don't get it.
Wouldn't that be great?
Or if it's input,
That's a
then
bye
it's
guy.
how much time it took to get.
Yeah.
You're
This
just
is
looking
not
at
spongy or fungi.
Why are you looking at just these? It says bananas.
So
Look at banana for Fiji.
Let me see if
Yeah, but I don't know if I
okay, so
Please.
give me
Bernie,
your input.
Kevin, you
You got this, the other is under, so 10, 2,
Just the
20.
I didn't input either.
What are you moving your
So that's gonna be
No, he's gonna be a guy that owns like Bill Gates, and like him, so he's gonna have a company called Banana, right beside that.
we're doing input.
He's gonna make smartphones.
And what are you gonna major in?
You just go to land with me. That's the same thing I'm doing. Computer engineering. Go to land with me. This is small cars. It's not like ginormous.
keep saying G, so.
I have no ambition.
It's just either one of them better.
Like 70,000 people, 60,000 people.
But it's one of the hardest schools to get into.
Hey, that's way, huh?
It's one of the hardest schools to get into.
Around, but definitely not.
Third, second, third.
So what?
No.
First is Emory, second is Georgia
I would say
Tech.
Georgia.
But it's really.
Is it either one of
Wait, it's hard to get the Emory's hard to get.
Emory's the hardest one.
The way
My friend,
the wedding she went to school.
my cousin,
Grad school. She's got a master's.
Getting in front
But
Could you get it?
she went there for both.
Could you get
Like she went there, but then she
Would you rather pay 50 cents for
have like
a bag of rice?
What's the 50 cents?
She's
I think Katie got 50 too.
Kate did not get it.
no. The highest you get is $6.
2 units of rice.
Jackson Pearson, 13.
I'm seeing it as dollars.
Katie said 14 or 15.
They probably make it like 400, 500. I'm just kidding. But I don't
He
think
said
they
a
made
14
it.
or 15. He's aiming to get higher. One of my friend Jessie, she got in.
Jessie?
She's in high school. She finished 2 years of college. She only has 2 years left.
But if the, it changes in input.
Is that Sebastian's sister?
No, but
She lives in a
Wait, is this Sebastian's sister?
It's like,
He said it's a different one. I'm like,
wait, absolutely, absolutely.
If it takes
Okay, we got
Fiji
some-
tomatoes, there's a ton of bananas.
you always look the way to spend it on it's got like champagne.
It's one rice.
So it takes Fiji 5
But it's
hours.
still, it's better than one rice for 2 bananas.
Absolutely. You want to be a computer scientist?
Yes, he does.
Look at the salary. What are you going for? The salary or just something like for both?
Half a shell.
It's about 90 something. Starting salary?
My starting salary is $130,000.
That's not the same thing. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Would you rather have
I swear you
one dude for 2 shells?
Average salary is $84,000 in 2015, which is less than the hefty $141,000 average salary of an IT manager.
Yeah.
And then,
I would have done
Be an IT manager.
What about cybersecurity?
so at the end of the day, produce
People
10 tons
want
of bananas.
cybersecurity.
Is either one of them.
Who
has the absolute advantage in the race?
You said you can't just say hackers and like
Is it
get
hard to
mad
get
at
in
it.
Google? Is it hard to get in Google?
In a day,
It's a hard to get
Who
to.
is the absolute advantage?
Work is bad.
China produces 2 tons of bananas. Who has the advantage?
I know Google hires a lot of people, so
No, but it's hard to get in.
I'm assuming absolute advantage.
It's true.
Google's a place, fun place where they
It is
slide down
fun.
slides and stuff. Cracking into Google. 15 reasons why more than 2 million people saw it.
Who has the absolute advantage? Right.
Alright, here we go. It's hard to get a job. Russia is the easiest way
Okay,
to
I don't know
find
what I'm trying to ask. I don't want to just Nika has an advantage on iPhone.
computer engineer,
And then
11,
the absolute
11, or
advantage.
111, 730.
No, it's
This is hours to produce 1 ton.
No way.
the thing we did at school, you know?
Wait, but it takes
Back
time
right
to
there.
draw.
No,
He said 140,000.
look at
That would
inputs.
make-
Yeah. inputs, it takes Fiji
one for Google.
5 hours to produce a ton of rice.
That's their.
China can produce that same ton of rice in 2 hours. So who can do it better? That's absolutely.
That's the same thing.
What about
Yeah.
But I'm saying like that's the
Advantage
same
in
thing.
rice.
Just
If we're talking inputs. Right. So
that is
Fiji's
median.
rice number is what?
This is
Not
gonna be a
high.
soundtrack of me laughing.
2 rice.
So there's lower.
Fiji's rice number is 5. Right? So Fiji's rice number is 5. It's an
Senior
input
sophomore
question.
year is 150.
Where's the other number go?
Yeah, about 150. And then
Input.
it's 80.
Oh, it's the question you're asking about.
Give me that. You know,
Kirby's
Kirby's
rice on top.
Yes.
$3 million.
Well,
But then if you
rice-
look at the open that door,
rice
it's
is
about
then the number, and bananas is the other.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're looking for comparative advantage in rice, 5, if it's an input, 5 is on top. If it's an output, 5 is on bottom.
local board.
Wait, so is it fast? It has like my own stuff or I do like to do?
These are questions that do not mean anything.
Is this the comparative advantage for rice?
Alright, so
Here, right. 247. Limit
Fiji, banana.
What is another
Banana
one?
number
Majority
is
of it come from.
10, and it's out. The other goes over. So their 5 goes over.
No, it's not.
So
What if he got money from that?
banana.
Zero. Oh, travel. Travel. He gets 0 money for travel. He's like the biggest traveler.
So yeah, which one of those numbers is low? That tells you this one.
Rail lit. Pamphlet.
I'm stuck. And they, Coach Gordon, I'm stuck. And they're confusing me.
What? If you hear some words, you just turn around and you
I took twice a year with my history of
I don't go to
I would find it hard to say this. Both of them.
And I'm going to the dermatologist right now. Like
probably like 110.
Yeah, I even do on that.
Talk to you. You can do this, you can do
yeah,
that.
that's what Dr. do.
So you got a number goes
You gotta
up.
know what.
He did surgery.
So if you're looking at rice,
Surgeons make a lot, man.
right?
I never had it.
Input,
5%.
you're looking for rice, comparative advantage of rice, 5. The other number goes under, so it's 5 over 10.
For output,
So 1 rice equals
1/2.
2 bananas.
1/2 of a banana.
Wait, look at the
Alright, so who has the absolute advantage in bananas?
Neither.
Right? Neither. They both produce the same amount. Right? Neither one of them is better than the other.
Yeah, I'm better than you.
And that works whether it's an input or an output. Right? Who has the absolute advantage in rice if it's output? If it's output, who's got better? Who's rice? Fiji, right? If it's input, who is it? China, right? So Fiji has the absolute advantage if it's output, right? If that's the units we produce per day, 5 is more than 2. But if it's inputs, if it's time it takes to produce 1 ton of the product, right? It takes Fiji 5 hours and China 2 hours. Then China does it better. They do it quicker. They're more efficient. So if it's inputs, China has the absolute advantage. All right, who has comparative advantage in bananas? Right, if it's output, it's China. Right? And then we can explain that by doing the math. Right? The opportunity cost of bananas in Fiji. Right? Output, the other number goes over. So our banana number is what? What's our banana number? In Fiji?
10.
It's 10. right? The other number is what?
5.
All right, it goes over. So that relationship is
1/2.
1/2. So 1 banana equals half a unit of rice. And then in China, the banana number is 10. The rice number goes over as a 2. That reduces down to 1/5. So every banana in China costs 1/5 of a unit of rice. 1/5 is less than 1/2. And so we would rather pay, you'd rather pay 20 cents than 50 cents for rice or for banana?
Yeah.
Right, would you rather pay 20 cents or 50 cents if you had to buy a banana? 20 cents, right? All right, now output for rice is going to be Fiji. Going to have the comparative advantage because Fiji only gives up 2 bananas every time they produce rice, whereas in China gives up 5 bananas every time they produce rice. Right? And so, again, its output, so the other number goes where? Over. So our rice number in Fiji is 5, the other number 10 goes over the top. So 1 banana, or 1 unit of rice equals 2 bananas. And you do the same thing in China. It's 10 over 2, reduced down to 5 bananas. Would you rather give up 2 bananas or 5 bananas if you had to buy rice? 2. Yeah. You want to go with the lower price. You'd rather give up 2 bananas. Let me show y'all an additional way to calculate.
I have to go check out. Mom called.
You got skin problems?
Oh, my family has a history of skin cancer.
Okay, you're good. All right, real quick. Another method for calculating opportunity cost. So in Fiji, theoretically, you can put all your resources into bananas and you get 10, or you put all your resources into rice and get 5. So in Fiji, 10 bananas equals 5 units of rice. So if I want to find the opportunity cost of 1 banana, what do I have to do? Just divide by 10 on both sides. So 1 banana equals
1/2 of a rice.
Is that not what we found out earlier?
Right.
Right. Go back to the slide before this.
So we know 5 divided by 10 is. What about 2?
Oh yeah, you could do 5 divided by 2 today. Yeah, you guys got a lot better at math. Sometimes it's like getting yelled at. It changes things.
Kevin had a
right. Last thing for you guys. There is a